just take a step back to something you brought up earlier, the inelasticity of pricing. Uh, is it from a perspective of the dealers, whether we're talking about cigarettes or maybe venturing slightly into the illegal realm, of people who sell drugs illegally? They also have an economics to them that they set prices and all those kinds of things. Does addiction allow you to mess with the nature of pricing? Like, so I kind of assume that you meant that there's a correlation between things you're addicted to and the inelasticity of the price. So you can jack up the price. Is there
Right.
something interesting to be said both for legal drugs and illegal drugs about the kind of price games you can play, because the consumers of the product are addicted?
Right. I mean, I think you just described it. Yeah, you can jack up the price and, some people are going to drop off, but the people, and it's not dichotomous because you could just consume less, but some people are going to consume less and the people that are most addicted are going to keep, I mean, you see this, they're going to keep, purchasing. So you see this with cigarettes. And so it's interesting when you interface this with policy, like in one respect, heavily taxing cigarettes is a good thing. We know it keeps, adolescents are particularly price sensitive. So you definitely,
Interesting.
people smoke less, and especially kids smoke less when you keep cigarette prices high and you tax the hell out of them. But one of the downsides you've got to balance and keep in mind is that you disproportionately have working class, poorer people. And then you get into a point where someone's spending, a
Yeah.
quarter of their paycheck on
So they're going to
cigarettes.
smoke no
They're
matter
heavy.
what. And basically, because they're addicted, they're going to smoke no matter what. And you're just, yeah, you're taxing their existence.
Right. So you're making it worse for
Yeah.
if they are completely inelastic, you're actually making that person's life worse,
Yeah.
because we know that by interfering with the amount of money they have, you're interfering with the other pro-social, the potential competitors to smoking, and we know that when someone's in more impoverished environments and they have less sort of non-drug alternatives, the more likely they're going to stay addicted. So,
Is there data, this is interesting, from a scientific perspective, of those same kind of games in illegal drugs? Sort of, because that's where most I mean, I don't know, maybe you can correct me, but it seems like most drugs are currently illegal. And so, but there's still an economics to them, obviously.
right.
That's the drug war and so on. Is there data on the setting of prices, or like how good are the business people running the selling of drugs that are illegal? Are they all the same kind of rules apply from a behavioral economics perspective?
I think so. I mean, they're basically that whether they're crunching the numbers or not, they're basically sensitive to that demand curve, and they're doing the same thing that businesses do in a legal market. And you want to sell as much of a product to get as much money. You're looking more at the total income. So if you jack the price a little bit, you're going to get some reduction in consumption, but it may be that the total amount of money that you rake in is going to be more then it's going to overcompensate for that. So you're willing to take, okay, I'm going to lose 10% of my customers, but I'm getting more, more than enough to compensate from that, from the extra money from the people who still are buying. So I think they're more, and especially when we get to the lower, I wouldn't be surprised if people are crunching those numbers and looking at demand curves, maybe at the, at the really high levels of the, up the chain with the
Right.
cartels and whatnot. I don't know. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but I think it's probably, more implicit at the lower levels where,
Right.
something you brought up, drug policy. I will say that for years now, it's been this kind of unquestioned goal by, for example, the drug czar's office in the U.S. to make the price of illegal drugs as high as possible, without this kind of nuanced approach that, if you make, for some people, if if you make the price so high, you're actually making things worse. I mean, I'm
Mm.
all about reducing the problems associated with drugs and drug
Right.
addictions. And part of that is are more direct consequences of those drugs themselves. But a whole lot is what you get from indirectly and sort of the both for the individual and for society. So like making a poor person who doesn't have enough money for their kids, making them even poorer. So now you've made their children's future worse because they're growing up in deeper poverty because you've essentially levied a tax onto this person who's heavily addicted. But then it's at the societal level, so everything we know about the drug war in terms of the heavy criminalization and filling up prisons and reducing employment and educational opportunities, which in the big picture we know are the things that in a free market compete against some of the worst problems of addiction, is actually having educational and employment opportunities. But when you give someone a felony, for example, you're pretty much guaranteeing they're never going to go very high on the economic ladder. And so you're making drugs a better reward for that person's future.